In the shadowed halls of the White House, as winter winds howled through Washington in 1860, a president stood idle while his nation fractured like brittle glass. 7 states seceded, arsenals fell into rebel hands, and the drumbeat of war echoed across a divided land. This was no act of fate, it was the legacy of James Buchanan, the leader whose inaction ignited the bloodiest conflict in American history. Who was this man, and how did his choices plunge the United States into chaos? Dive into the shadows of power and betrayal in this gripping tale of the most dangerous U.S. president ever. Stick around for the full story, and if you crave more untold secrets from history's darkest corners, hit that subscribe button now. The year is 1857, and America teeters on a knife's edge. Vast cotton fields stretch under the relentless southern sun, where enslaved hands toil in sweltering heat, their chains clinking like omens of unrest. In the north, factory smokestacks belch dark plumes into crisp autumn skies, fueling an industrial boom that clashes with the agrarian South's way of life. Slavery, the festering wound at the heart of the Union, divides families, states, and souls. Abolitionists whisper of moral reckoning in Boston parlors, while plantation owners in Charleston toast to states' rights over glasses of bourbon laced with defiance. Into this powder keg steps James Buchanan, a 65-year-old Pennsylvania bachelor with a lifetime in politics. Tall and portly, with a perpetual squint from a childhood eye injury, he carries the air of a seasoned diplomat. Former senator, secretary of state, ambassador to Britain. Elected in 1856 on a Democratic ticket, he promises harmony, vowing to bridge the sectional divide. His cabinet, a patchwork of northern and southern loyalties, gathers in opulent rooms scented with cigar smoke and ink, debating policies amid flickering gas lamps. Yet, beneath the veneer of unity lurks a fatal flaw: Buchanan's deep sympathy for Southern interests, born from years of compromise and a belief in limited federal power. As tensions simmer, bleeding Kansas erupts in violence, John Brown's raid sends shivers through slaveholders. The stakes rise. Could one man's rigid principles doom a nation? Whispers of secession grow louder, like thunder rolling over the Potomac, hinting at the cataclysm to come. But harmony proved elusive, as Buchanan's early moves fanned the flames rather than douse them. Mere days into his term, the Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision exploded like a cannon shot, declaring that African Americans could never be citizens and that Congress had no right to ban slavery in territories. Buchanan, who had secretly lobbied a justice for this outcome, hailed it as a final settlement, yet it only deepened the chasm. Northern crowds roared in outrage, their streets alive with torchlit protests, while Southern editors crowed victory in ink-stained broadsheets. The president, ensconced in the White House's velvet-draped study, dismissed the fury, convinced his pro-Southern tilt would preserve peace. Danger closed in from the west, where Kansas bled under the weight of fraudulent votes and vigilante skirmishes. Buchanan backed the pro-slavery Lecompton Constitution, a document forged in deceit, pushing it through Congress despite clear evidence of rigging. Abolitionists decried it as tyranny, and even his own party fractured. Stephen Douglas, the Illinois senator and architect of popular sovereignty, broke ranks in a heated Senate clash, his voice thundering against the betrayal. Buchanan's response? He purged dissenters from federal posts, his pen slashing like a blade, alienating moderates and emboldening extremists. The Panic of 1857 added fuel, as banks collapsed and breadlines snaked through northern cities, blamed on Southern favoring tariffs that Buchanan refused to reform. Whispers of corruption swirled around his cabinet, with Secretary of War John Floyd funneling arms to Southern states under the guise of routine transfers, arsenic in the Union's veins. As 1860 dawned, the air thickened with suspense. Buchanan's foreign ambitions faltered. His bids to annex Cuba or invade Mexico fizzled amid congressional gridlock, exposing his weakening grip. The Democratic Party splintered at the Charleston Convention, egos clashing in humid halls as delegates stormed out, dooming their chances. Republicans, sensing blood, nominated Abraham Lincoln, a lanky rail splitter whose anti-slavery stance terrified the South. Buchanan watched from afar, his letters to allies laced with denial, insisting the Union was unbreakable. But shadows lengthened. Secret Southern militias drilled by moonlight, and federal forts in Charleston Harbor stood vulnerable, their garrisons undermanned. Betrayals mounted as cabinet members resigned in protest, leaving Buchanan isolated in an echoing mansion, his once loyal circle unraveling. The nation held its breath, teetering toward an abyss, as the president's inaction whispered of impending doom. The election of 1860 shattered the fragile facade, unleashing a torrent of fury that no compromise could stem. As returns trickled in on that crisp November night, Lincoln's victory sealed the fate Buchanan had dreaded yet failed to avert. Southern fire-eaters, their voices hoarse from rallies under moss-draped oaks, declared the Union dissolved. South Carolina led the charge on December 20th, its convention hall echoing with defiant cheers as delegates voted to secede, the crack of gavels like rifle shots in the night. Buchanan, pale and trembling in the White House, faced his gravest test. Major Robert Anderson, commanding Fort Sumter, slipped his men into the harbor stronghold under cover of darkness, a desperate bid to hold federal ground. The president wavered. His annual message to Congress had already proclaimed secession illegal but war unconstitutional without legislative approval. "I have no power," he lamented to aides, his hands tied by a rigid interpretation of the Constitution that ignored the crisis's urgency. As Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas followed suit, forming the Confederacy in Montgomery's fevered assemblies, Buchanan dithered. Cabinet debates raged into the wee hours, cigar smoke curling like specters, but no reinforcements sailed, no ultimatums issued. Treasonous officials in his own administration shipped weapons south, their loyalties fracturing like the nation itself. The human toll mounted in agonizing suspense. Families divided, with brothers eyeing each other across picket lines. Northern merchants watched trade evaporate, their warehouses silent tombs. Buchanan's final plea for a constitutional convention fell on deaf ears, his voice drowned by the clamor of mobilization. As Lincoln prepared to take the oath, the outgoing president retreated into denial, hosting lavish dinners amid the chaos, his laughter hollow. The turning point crystallized in those frozen months. Buchanan's choices, rooted in ideological stubbornness, handed the rebels time to arm and organize. The Union hung by a thread, its survival hinging on the will of a man who chose paralysis over action, condemning America to the horrors ahead. In the dim light of March 4, 1861, Buchanan escorted Lincoln to the Capitol steps, his face etched with relief as he whispered, "If you are as happy entering the presidency as I am leaving it, then you are a very happy man." The handover marked the end of an era, but the scars ran deep. Lincoln inherited a splintered nation, with federal forts besieged and the treasury depleted. Just weeks later, Confederate guns thundered at Sumter, igniting the Civil War, a conflagration that claimed over 600,000 lives, rivers running red at Antietam and Gettysburg, families shattered in the smoke of battle. Buchanan retreated to his wheatland estate in Pennsylvania, where he spent his remaining years penning a self-justifying memoir, insisting history would vindicate him. It did not. Historians branded him a failure, his legacy a cautionary tale of leadership's perils. By prioritizing states' rights over national unity, he exacerbated divisions that might have been bridged, setting precedents for executive weakness in crisis. The war's aftermath reshaped America. Emancipation freed millions, but Reconstruction's turmoil echoed Buchanan's compromises, breeding resentment that lingered for generations. Yet in this tragedy lies timeless truth. The fragility of democracy, where one leader's indecision can unleash forces beyond control. It reminds us that power demands courage, not capitulation, lest history repeat its darkest chapters. As the echoes of cannon fire fade into memory, ponder the cost of silence in the face of division. If this journey through history's shadows gripped you, smash that like button, share with a fellow history buff, and subscribe for more riveting tales of power and peril.